give me the first thing that you took from that game. After that game, what made you go, you know what? What was the biggest thing you took out of it?
I would say that Chargers defense is legit. I think we saw
Agreed.
them play really well in week one. They led up just 20 offensive points to the Chiefs. You take away that 99-yard interception, poor Gerald Everett. I mean, the guy just wanted a break. But you take away that 99-yard interception return, that's a 20-point game, and the Chargers probably win. I also take away the fact that I'm just not scared of the Chiefs. If you take away the deep ball, I am not worried about them in the intermediate passing game. And don't get me wrong, Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the NFL. Him and Josh Allen are,
Right.
1A, 1B. But that Chiefs offense does not scare me anymore. And really, that's been since last year. They had issues with the deep ball. So really, the Chargers are in a really good spot. But man, do they always find a way to lose. It was
Yep.
in the Rivers era. Now we're bringing this stuff over to the Herbert era.
Yep.
That is honestly, it's such a non-tangible thing to be worried about. But the Chargers as a franchise, just they always find the worst ways to lose. It's unbelievable.
I know. It really is. Look, Patrick Mahomes went 24 for 35. He had 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, a short cry from what he did in week one. And I think everybody really took that and they were like, oh my God, the Chiefs are going to be unstoppable. And it's the typical overreaction from week one. Then we slide into week two. They play a really good defense. And I agree with you 1,000% on the LA Chargers defense is definitely legit. I believe that they were going to be the biggest part of the Chargers possibly being able to upset this team. And they were in a sense. But let's talk about Justin Herbert at 334, 3 touchdowns and a pick with a freaking fractured rib, throws a dime
Oh my goodness.
in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And when I say a dime, Mike, you saw it. That was a dime. And I was like, wow. Knowing this guy is wincing and pushing on his ribs, what I took from this game is Justin Herbert is a freaking gamer. He is an unbelievable look. I know people and I know that people are watching right now, see me wearing my Steeler polo here, and they're gonna go, oh, he's gonna compare him to Ben Roethlisberger. I am. Ben Roethlisberger played with a broken nose and a broken toe and played an entire quarter after doing such. This guy is legit. He is a stud NFL quarterback. It's one of the reasons why I was praying and going to church every Sunday for 2 months before the NFL draft, hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers would find a way to get Justin Herbert into that freaking franchise. This kid blew not just my mind, but I think a lot of people that were watching that game.
Yeah, 100%. The Chargers are pretty lucky. They had a good quarterback for a while in Phillip Rivers, and they go from Rivers to Justin Herbert. You couldn't ask for a better transition than that. But I think Herbert's better than Phillip Rivers, to be honest with
I
you.
do
Just
too.
the overall skill set. He can do more. Will he have as many kids? We'll see. But he's gonna throw for more yards, and he's gonna have a better career than Phillip Rivers did. And yeah, he's a star, man, and really the toughness is one of the last things he has to prove, and he proved that on Thursday night. But obviously a long way to go before we can proclaim him a Hall of Famer or anything like
Sure.
that. But man, he's off to one hell of a start.
Look, I think a lot of people watch this game, and look, and it was a really good game. It really was. And sometimes those are, the games that everybody's kind of like, this game will be okay. I was really looking forward to this game, and honestly, it didn't disappoint. And I like how you said you're not afraid of the Chiefs. I don't think anybody should be afraid of the Chiefs. What you should be afraid of is at some point, Patrick Mahomes it's almost like this kid plays better. And I wish I would have pulled the numbers up. This kid plays better when they are behind. He just seems to excel in ways that he doesn't when they're ahead. It's just some guys love to play from behind. Patrick Mahomes is definitely that type of quarterback. It seems like he somehow finds another gear. he just plays better when they're behind. And I'm going to say this on a side note. If I have to see that stupid shuffle pass one more time, and that's, you know what? And when it went bad last week, I was like, ha, that's what you get.
Right.
Too many times to the well, buddy. I'm like, enough with the shuffle pass. Because
yeah.
I'm
I don't think that's going away anytime soon, but
I know.
we'll
Just
see. We'll
throwing
see.
it out there. So let's talk about his he's got a fracture to his rib cartilage, I believe is the proper, term that they said. Is this how detrimental is this going to be for this Chargers team? You made some great points, Mike, about, the Chargers always find a way to lose. And it's historical for this team. It's unfortunate, but it just seems like it's some kind of weird Cleveland Browns black cloud, if you will, that
Right.
just won't leave this franchise. But with Herbert and having this fractured rib, he's got tons of time to heal. We understand that. But how crucial is this going to be? How much is it going to affect their offense?
Well, I mean, that'll depend. Obviously, when he threw that dime after suffering the injury, it didn't look like it was affecting him, but who knows what they shot him up with or whatever, so
Yep.
you don't really know. It's going to be about pain management. How much does he feel the injury when he's throwing? And
Right.
with a rib and you're throwing as a quarterback, you're going to feel it. So,
Every time.
it depends on how how well they treat it, and I don't have a lot of faith in how they're going to treat it because if you remember, I believe it was in 2020, Tyrod Taylor had a rib injury and
Mhm.
they injected him and he ended up
Worse.
suffering a punctured lung.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, Schefter dropped something this morning saying that Taylor is actually suing the doctor who did that. And it's the
Wow.
same doctor who's treating
Treating?
Justin Herbert.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that is a very odd situation. If I'm a Chargers fan, I'm a little concerned about that doctor right now, but hopefully, he doesn't, jig Justin Herbert the wrong way like he did Tyrod Taylor. Let's just hope for the best on that one.
Oh my God. I see that I didn't know. See that and that is concerning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Hell, if you're Justin Herbert, I'd be like, hey, aren't you the guy that punctured Tyrod? I'd be like, no. Stay
Yep.
away, bro. Stay
Yep.
away.
Yeah, and if
first
I
off,
remember correctly, they've had a couple of questionable team doctors over the years.
yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Don't hold me to that, but I
Right.
think there was another doctor that had issues with that team in the past. So it's a crazy situation. That's not something you want to hear about when that doctor is treating your franchise quarterback who looks like a superstar. So
Absolutely. I think we are gonna. I think this was just the tip of the iceberg of what we're about to see from Justin Herbert. I think,
yep.
like I said, if that dark cloud somehow can be moved away, this kid has got a very bright future. He is an unbelievable athlete, obviously with the fractured rib cartilage to be able to throw a dime like that. Couldn't run for the first down though, but
No.
couldn't
Yeah.
run for the first down, but he sure did throw that ball. So that was pretty impressive. All right. Right down the line is brought to you by W Energy Drink. Make sure you guys get over to w.gg and check out this Jitterless energy drink. It's amazing. I drink it every day. I got some right here on me. It's so good. It's I don't want to mention the other competitors' names of energy drinks, but they don't make you feel like that. Be better with W Energy Drink. No calories, no sugar, no fillers, no artificial colors. It's an amazing product. Dragonade, they have Dub Sludge. My favorite is Monkey Madness. I know it sounds weird, but Monkey Madness is strawberry and banana. It's amazing. Get over to w.gg, use Michael J Radio, and you'll get 10% off your purchase. All right. So I honestly think that he's going to be okay, depending on, like you said, how they treat it. Because if it's just ribs are tough. It's a tough thing to really, like, I don't want to say overcome, but it's a tough thing to deal with when you're talking about a man that's going to be constantly in motion, like constantly. And I don't know about you, Mike. I don't know if you've ever had a rib fractured or broken, or I've had one that was bruised. I had bruised areas right here in my muscle, and just that alone, it was hard to breathe. When I would move too much, it was constant, like a digging, a pain. I don't know how he's going to deal with this, but I think watching what we saw, I honestly think that this kid's going to figure out a way. And the one thing that I'm concerned about is that he may play almost not too hurt, but he's going to play through the pain. And I don't know if that's always a good thing.
Yeah, but good news for the Chargers is next three games: Jaguars, Texans, Browns. So
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
you can limit his workload a little bit, depend on the
sure.
run a little bit more, and that will take some of the pressure off of him. So three winnable games in a row, and maybe Herbert doesn't have to throw this team on his back. They haven't gotten much from the run game so far this year. They've got to
Right.
change that a little bit too. They got to take some pressure off the kid.
Let's switch gears to another quarterback last week that had his own issues. Of course, you're talking about Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. They said he's going to be on the sidelines today for the Bengals game. Cooper Rush is playing. Dak is supposed to be out. What do they say? Like, I don't know what the last one is. Was it 4 weeks now?
Yeah, they didn't put him on IR, and the last report I
Okay.
saw was they are optimistic that he'll be back before the 4 weeks, which is why
Right.
they didn't put him on IR. So maybe he comes back after another 2 games. I don't think you'll see him anytime before that. So, and then you also have to, remember Russell Wilson had, I believe, a similar injury last year.
Right.
Came back too quickly. I think it was after 3 weeks, and was
Yep.
not the same. He played terrible. So
Yep.
they might be better off, holding him out. But where are they going to be by then? So we'll see what happens. But Phil Simms said something very funny on Inside the NFL this week, and he said that there won't be that big a drop off from Dak Prescott to Cooper Rush. And I said, what? Like I'm not the biggest Dak Prescott fan, but he is
Right.
miles better than Cooper Rush. Like,
Well, yeah.
what are
Yeah.
we talking about here? So to
Yeah.
hear a quarterback say that, and I love Phil Simms, but to hear him say that, I was just like, what? So
Phil Simms has a little bit of haterade in him. I think he always has. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
He's always that guy that likes to say something that makes everybody go, "Wait, what? What did he just say?" So look, let's call it what it is. First of all, we know it's a thumb injury, right? He had surgery on Monday, but can we talk about play? Honestly, it's not like he was lighting it up that day, and it's not like I don't know. I just feel like you and I both talked about we're both tired of hearing about how good the Cowboys are going to be. I completely disagree with Phil Simms, but can we honestly say that it's really? I mean, who do they have today? Bengals. Then they have the Giants. Then they have Washington. Let me see, and then they have the Rams. Okay, so if he can get back by say the Eagles game, which in hindsight would probably be the best thing. So we're looking at the Bengals, which they're probably going to lose that game.
Yeah.
The Giants toss up, Mike.
Um,
Or do you think the Giants pull it
with
off?
Cooper Rush, no, I don't think you could say anything with the Cowboys as a toss up.
Okay.
Even in a divisional game like that, I'd give the
Okay.
edge to the Giants there.
Okay. And then you
Yeah.
got Washington. You got the Commanders.
Similar situation. They have a better chance to win that game than they would against the Cincinnati or an LA, but
Right.
again, I mean, the Cooper Rush factor is just I cannot pick the Cowboys until they get Dak back. I cannot pick them in any game. I just wouldn't
Right.
do it. Their offense is going to be in shambles. Their run game has been bad too. The last couple of years hasn't been great. And now, you factor in a worse situation at quarterback. I can't pick them for any game. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Look, if they find a way to win two of those games, possibly,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I don't see him beating the Giants. Maybe Washington, but I don't know. Carson Wentz was on fire last week. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to get a lot more out of their defense, which didn't play too badly.
their
Um,
defense
and,
actually
and
played pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they play pretty good, but I mean, week one is such. I hate basing anything off of week one. A lot of these
Agreed.
guys didn't play during the preseason. They didn't have a lot of time together. They're out of rhythm. The chemistry isn't quite there yet.
Right.
Guys are gassed a little bit extra early on in the season. So it's so hard to take, even with the game with the Broncos. Do I think the
Right.
Broncos are going to look like that all year? No.
Right.
If the Broncos had played the Seahawks in week 6, they probably would have blew them out by 4 touchdowns. So
Right.
I can't put too much stock into the way teams look in week 1. But obviously the Cowboys without Dak is we can put stock in that
Absolutely.
they're screwed.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about that. Let's pivot for a second. Let's talk about that because it's been on the tongues of a lot of people throughout this week after seeing week 1 saying, look, was it smart? Now, we know the collective bargain agreement had a lot to do with this, with how practices are run, what they wear, whether or not they're wearing helmets, the guardian caps, all that stuff, right? How much of an effect do you think it had for a lot of these starting lineups not playing, and especially quarterbacks not seeing a whole lot of snaps during preseason? Do you think it really did have an effect on week 1?
I do to a certain extent. I think the preseason is often poo-pooed as unimportant and nobody wants to watch it. But I think, these guys getting into their routine, their rhythm for the season, even if it's just a series or two, doing the things that they do normally pregame. I heard Julian Edelman talk about this on Pardon My Take, and he said that he loved preseason. He thought it was important because, again, that's when you start getting into your pregame routine, halftime routine, postgame routines, and you just kind of get the wheels moving a little bit so that when you enter week 1, you're not going from 0 to 60. You're going from 30 to 60 or 20 to 60, So
Right.
I think the preseason plays a lot bigger factor. I understand why teams do it. You don't want to have these injuries and lose your best player because some third string guy dove at his knees. But I do think that there is definitely value in starters getting a series or two together. So
I completely agree. Look, I've always understood that, you always felt like you were going to see, the ones week 3 was like the dress rehearsal, right?
right,
The
always
third week, the third week of, of preseason. Not the case anymore because now there's only 3. So in my mind, I'm thinking when this started, okay, second week of preseason is when they'll have a dress rehearsal. Week 3, they get as many of these guys that are on the fence in, things of that nature. And, usually the starters will play half of the first or whatever. To not see these starters, look, I think, especially with Joe Burrow coming off of the, his appendectomy thing or whatever. Look, I think him not getting a lot of snaps, I think that hurt him in the Pittsburgh game.
sure.
I mean, it definitely he didn't look like he had timing down. He didn't look like he was able to find a rhythm right off the bat. It took him way longer than I think a lot of us are used to seeing. I know this kid's a third year, but I mean, at this point, we're used to seeing him with good rhythm with his receivers, and it just wasn't clicking for him at all.
Yeah, and we also have to remember there's been a lot of changes to practice rules over the years as well,
Right.
right? So the off-season program, you can't hit, training camp, you're limited to a certain amount of padded practices. They're a little bit shorter, not as intense as maybe they were in years past. So preseason is really the only opportunity you have
To
to
do it.
maybe, get some live game reps in before the season starts. And I don't think it's any surprise that you see. I mean, listen, there were obviously exceptions, and some teams, the Lions came out on fire. The Chiefs looked great. Chiefs
Right.
played in the preseason. Lions, I believe, played their players in the preseason. I don't think DeAndre Swift played, but other guys did. So, there's exceptions to the rule, obviously. It's not uniform in every instance, but I would believe that the teams that struggled in week 1 offensively and even defensively would have benefited from having a couple of series together just to get their feet wet in the preseason.
Absolutely. Look, it's gonna if they're gonna constantly have issues in week 1, I know that they did what they did for the practices to, help these guys along the way, limit injuries, because we all know so many injuries happen during preseason. And I understand that. And I know, but at the end of the day, being cautious, being cautious may hurt them in the long run. Now, I'm not saying that they should still be banging on each other like crazy in practice, but I think maybe they took away too much think they might have softened it just a little bit. I completely agreed with the 3-game preseason.
Yes.
I thought 4 games was way too much. Hell, back in the day, Mike, they used to have 2. So,
Yeah.
and then you have to count in somebody's got to play that Hall of Fame game.
Hmm.
So, those 2 teams were 5 games. So I thought it was good that they dialed it back to 3. Um, but sometimes you got, the old saying is be careful what you wish for. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
might have bit off more than they can chew, because now we're starting to see the negative effects of it. Um, in hindsight, yeah, these guys aren't getting banged up as much, but now now you're suffering on your preparation to get ready for the season, and in turn, at the end of the day, that can cause injuries as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's not the same as it was. And listen, I think a lot of coaches probably understand. All right, we may get off to a slow start offensively, and maybe we lose week one because of that. But every
right,
game is so important. I mean, how many times do you go to the end of the year and your team just misses out on the playoffs? You go, if we had won that game, we'd be in the playoffs. If we had won
yeah,
this game, we would have been in the playoffs. So every game you only get 17 of them. So every game
absolutely,
is crucial, which is why, overreactions are especially prevalent in the NFL because every game is just so important.
absolutely. Speaking of crucial, here's some crucial news for you. Saints fans, running back Alvin Kamara listed as questionable due to another rib injury. Is not expected to play against Tampa on Sunday. How crucial, Mike, is this for that Saints offense?
I mean, very crucial. Listen, they won in week one. They didn't get a lot out of Kamara, but I mean, with what he does in the run game and as a pass catcher, uh, you know, this is it's a tough loss for them. Look for Mark Ingram to step up, but he's playing hurt as well. He was
Yep.
limited in practice this week, so fantasy purposes, you may not want to go all in on him this week. I would feel pretty comfortable starting him as a flex, but look for Tony Jones Jr. to have maybe the biggest role today if Ingram is playing hurt. The good news for the Saints is, though, as far as Kamara's involvement in the passing game is concerned, you've got now, a much deeper receiving core than you had maybe in the last couple of years. You've got Jarvis Landry, you've got Chris Olave, you've got Michael Thomas. So they have enough in the passing game where, you have guys in the short passing game that can cover for the loss of Kamara, can help pick up the slack there.
Sure.
But you don't simply replace one of the best running backs in the NFL. So
Arguable.
this could be difficult for them. But another thing I'll say a positive is usually the Bucks play tough run defense. So you probably weren't expecting much from the run game in this one to begin with.
Right.
But you're always a better team when you got Alvin Kamara on the field. So
Now, can we say, look, now I said this last week. I said, this is the year where Jameis Winston is going to make people go, oh, yeah, I remember him. He wants people to remember who he was, what kind of a good quarterback he was. 269, 2 touchdowns. How did you feel about his play last week?
I thought he looked good. I thought it was the exact type of conservative type approach they were going to take with him to limit the turnovers. I think he's a good enough quarterback to get that team to win that division and get that team to the playoffs. But will they unleash him a little bit? Will we see some more shots down the field? Because that's who Jameis is. Jameis is a gunslinger. He's not like a Drew Brees where he's trying to connect to 5, 10 yards down the field. He wants to throw the ball deep. That leads to interceptions, obviously, and things like that.
Yeah.
But you can't totally take that away from his game if you're going to get the most out of him. So I think Dennis Allen's got to try to find a way, and that offensive coaching staff has got to try to find a way to kind of find the happy medium between those two,
Right.
areas of his game.
Absolutely. Somebody else that might be a big missing piece of their offense, San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle is expected to miss his second straight game against the Seattle Seahawks. What do you think about this? Is this problematic for them? Was George missed last week?
I don't think anybody could have helped what happened last week. I mean,
I
they were
know.
playing in monsoon weather. So, but yeah, I mean, the
Bro.
49ers are always a better team when one of the best tight ends in the NFL is on the field. Absolutely. So this is a tough blow, but it's especially important when you have a young quarterback. You know, young quarterbacks tend to lean on their tight ends a little bit more. They're kind of that safety valve for them to go to when things break down, or just they want an easy completion. And I mean, Kittle is about as good a safety blanket as you can get. So
Sure.
I definitely think this hurts Trey Lance a little bit, and hurts the 49ers, but they should still be able to beat the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Yeah.
see. I thought that was the case last week with the Broncos, but yeah, no, I think the 49ers still win that game. Definitely hurts Trey Lance though.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this, and we'll get into this later. Geno Smith is still going to be Geno Smith, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway,
Right. I
and
mean,
this
he looked like college Geno Smith in the first half of that
the
game. I mean,
first
he was
half,
he was
yeah,
escaping the pocket. He was running all over the place, but he doesn't step up.
nope,
You know how many times
always
during that
out,
game I was yelling at the TV,
uh,
step up in the pocket, bro," and he
yep,
just would not do it.
always out. He's either going this way or this way. He never goes
Yeah,
up. I
yeah,
don't
he
know.
just
It's
stands
weird.
there and gets killed. Like, help
Yep.
your offensive line out a little bit, man.
Second half, he was atrocious. But anyway, all right.
Right.
So speaking of Trey Lance, a lot of people were banging on him. They're like, "Oh, it's a good thing we have Jimmy Garoppolo. San Francisco has Jimmy Garoppolo in their pocket." This, that, and the other thing. He went 13 to 28, 164 yards. Like you said, he did have a pick in the monsoon. That was that game against the Bears that they lost 19 to 10. Are you concerned about Trey Lance?
I mean, I was concerned about Trey Lance to begin with going into the season. You just never
Right.
know how a young quarterback with no starting experience is going to react. But
Right.
I mean, week one, that game in particular, I'm throwing away. I'm throwing out. I'm not taking anything away from that game. I'm not taking away, Trey Lance stinks or,
Right.
whatever. All I'm taking away is the weather was terrible,
Oh
and we
God.
really can't make too many judgments off a game like that. It's
No.
just it's frustrating because I wanted to see Trey Lance week one. What does this guy have,
Yep.
But you just, to be fair, you just can't take anything from that game. So we'll see. But he needs George Kittle. He needs him.
Yep.
They've got to get him back and healthy this season. And I don't blame them for taking things slowly with Kittle. You need him for the long haul. Trey Lance is not going to be as good as he could be if Kittle isn't on the field.
If Trey Lance continues to have not the best numbers, or let's say they continue to lose, at what point, what record, how many let's put it this way, Mike, how many games does San Francisco need to lose before they pull Trey Lance? Somebody asked me
I
that the
mean,
other day, and I was like, okay, call me back in about 5 hours. Let me think about this.
it's so tough, man, because you don't know if this is just part of the growing pains, his struggles. We've seen some rookie quarterbacks. He's not a rookie, obviously, but his first year starting.
Right.
We've seen some rookie. Look at Peyton Manning. If you had
It's
pulled the trigger on
garbage.
Peyton Manning too quickly, you would have lost out on a Hall of Fame quarterback and one of the best of all time. So
Yep.
I think they've got to ride this out longer than most people think. But if you ride it out to like a 1-4, 1-5 start, your season's maybe too late to be saved by Jimmy G. And
Right.
the fact that you have to be
Just let the
saved,
kid ride.
hoping to be saved by Jimmy G for crying
Right.
out loud is a scary proposition. But I mean, they made a big investment in this kid. They're going to have to live and die with him. I understand keeping Garoppolo and having that in your back pocket, but if you give up on Trey Lance after 4 games, A, you're going to look terrible, and B, you're not giving him much of an opportunity to really, show what he can do and get his feet wet. So, by the if they're 1-4, 1-5, I would say maybe you make the switch. But at that point, I mean, what are you playing for? You're probably out of it.
Right. I was asked that question, and my immediate response is leave him in. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
You brought the kid in for what purpose? To be the future of this franchise under center. Leave him in there. George Kittle's out. If you guys lose another game, okay, I could see people pushing the panic button. You don't want to blow your season, bring him in. But if you're, like you just said, if you're at the point where you have lost 3 games, 4 games, just leave the kid in. I don't understand how these teams go out. They get these franchise players that they wanted so bad. They pay them the money and they bring these kids in, and then they're like, we're probably going to have to bench them and we'll bring in the sure thing. That's not how it works. And you as NFL owners and coaches should know that. It can't always be about the right now. If you brought the kid in to rebuild everything, then rebuild it. Stop second guessing your own choices.
Yeah, they're trying to do this on the fly too. I mean, they're trying to compete and bring in a new quarterback at the same time. So it's a very difficult thing to do. And they never expected to have Jimmy G on this roster beyond week 1. I mean, they fully expected to trade him. So this was kind of the deal. You knew if this thing blows up in your face, your season's lost. So I mean, at 1-4, 1-5, would Jimmy Garoppolo be able to turn that team around and make the playoffs?
No.
Maybe by a miracle in the rest of the NFC, which isn't great. So I mean, you could maybe sneak in at 9-8, but even still, I mean, that's a very tall task to have to ask Jimmy G to do. And then you're effectively giving up on your young quarterback, who, again, you gave up a ton of assets to go get after 4 or 5 games. So I think it's kind of a ride or die situation. You got to ride with them.
And Mike, what does that do to this kid's confidence now?
Oh, shatters it. And I think his confidence
why did you guys bring me here?
Yeah, and I think his confidence is already hurt by the simple fact that they kept Jimmy G. I mean,
absolutely.
What does that say? It doesn't tell me that they've got 100% confidence in Trey Lance. They wanted to keep, and obviously it was because they couldn't really move him anywhere too. That was a problem. But if they really felt Trey Lance was a guy and didn't want to hurt his confidence, they would have found a way to make that work, to make a trade work, and they just didn't. And, now Jimmy G is sitting there waiting behind, and everybody's wondering, if the 49ers keep losing, the storyline's going to be, when is Jimmy G coming in? And the fans will be yelling for it too, rest assured.
Absolutely. All right, y'all, keep it locked. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Tom Brady and his woes. Has he hit the wall yet? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about thoughts on some last week's games that we both want to get some things off of our chest. All that coming up on Right Down the Line right here on Hot 97.7. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked, y'all.